Hello, everybody. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding Podcast, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and its significance in personal injury, workers' compensation, wrongful death, immigration, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, founder, and CEO, Laura of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. More Injury Funding is a sponsor, member, associate, or business partner of this podcast, Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys, Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, Sandy Springs Bar Association, Georgia Association of Paralegals, Atlanta Legal Aid Society, State Bar of Georgia, and Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. In today's episode, we have a special guest, attorney Trisha Starks-Byron. Starks-Byron is a Kennesaw-based personal injury firm handling a variety of bodily injury cases, including car accidents, hit and run injuries, motorcycle disasters, slip and fall accidents, dog bites, and drunk driving accidents. In today's episode, we will discuss Stark-Byron's unrequired must-haves or insurance coverages that aren't required by law in Georgia, but are highly recommended. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding Podcast, Trisha.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
Absolutely. So tell me, when did you start your own law firm, and why do you practice PI in particular, personal injury?
So I actually started the practice in February of 2019. So in about a week, we'll be celebrating, 5 years in business, which is really exciting. And as far as how I got into PI, it was actually kind of by chance. But I think God knows where you're supposed to be and he places you there. So I was one of those students that did not have a job set up right after law school. I spent the first couple of months after graduation studying for the bar. And then immediately after I took it, I was on the hunt to get a job. So I would dress up and go to offices and hand them my resume in person. I was messaging people online. I was cold calling offices and applying to every position that I saw. And then I got two job offers within about a week of each other. One was at a family law firm, and the other was a personal injury firm. And I ultimately went with the personal injury firm, and the rest is history. I really enjoyed what I was doing there and being able to advocate for my clients and learn about their injuries and how they affected them. Ever since I started at that firm, I never considered any other practice area.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. Well, let's start our conversation with exploring the benefits of umbrella insurance. Why is it highly recommended, even though it's not required by law in Georgia?
Of course. So this actually is not one of Starks Byron's unrequired must-haves. We have a blog on it. So we have insurance coverages that we really recommend for car wreck situations, but umbrella insurance is a great insurance to have. And what it does, is it protects you above and beyond other insurance coverages that you have. So an example of that would be if I injure someone with my car in a car accident and I have $100,000 worth of liability coverage, and the person that I injure might be very seriously injured where that $100,000 doesn't fully compensate them. In order to protect my personal assets and my business assets, I can allow that umbrella coverage to come in and compensate them more above and beyond, what they've recovered from my car insurance policy. So it's an additional coverage that you can have, and it can also kick in to cover situations that you might not have any coverage for at all. It can kick in then as well. So it's definitely a good one to have.
It's good to know. Can you, Tricia, please explain the importance of medical payments coverage, or so-called MedPay insurance in Georgia? Why is it recommended as an optional coverage for drivers?
So yes, this is one that I do highly recommend. It is one of Starks Byron's unrequired must-haves. And what medical payments coverage does is it helps to cover your medical expenses after an accident. And the good thing about it is that it quote unquote follows the person. So it can cover you if you are injured in someone else's vehicle. It can cover you if you're injured as a pedestrian. If you're injured on a public bus, it can cover you. and it just goes straight towards those medical bills. It's also important to know that in Georgia, we have something called the collateral source rule. So at-fault insurance companies cannot take into consideration bills that have already been paid by health insurance or medical payments coverage. So let's say that you have $10,000 in medical expenses as the result of a car accident, and you have $10,000 in MedPay coverage. That $10,000 in MedPay can cover all of your injury-related expenses, and then you're still entitled to compensation from the at-fault carrier. That at-fault carrier cannot say, well, you had MedPay, so the MedPay covered your bills. We don't owe you anything. No, they can't take that into consideration. So it really helps to maximize your recovery in a personal injury situation, but then also covers you even if you happen to be at fault for a wreck. It can help to cover your bills.
Very good. And this could be a little bit off topic, but can you talk a little bit about the value of renter's insurance? Why is it recommended for tenants in the state of Georgia, even though it's not required by law?
Yeah, so renter's insurance, it's not required by law, like you said, but there are landlords that will require it for their renters. And it's definitely a good one to have when you're renting. So it will cover you if you have personal property that's been damaged, maybe due to a fire or smoke damage or something like that. It'll cover your personal property up to a certain amount. It can also kick in if you are renting and you own a dog and your dog bites someone, or you have a friend that comes over and, they have a slip and fall in your home. It can help to compensate your friend in that situation. And it can also even help to provide accommodations if your home becomes uninhabitable. So let's say there is a fire or something like that, and you need to you need to go to a hotel for a little while. That renter's insurance can help to cover some of those hotel expenses.
Very interesting. And dog, cat, lion. I hope nobody has a lion in the house. Uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, or so-called why is it recommended for Georgia drivers despite not being mandatory?
So this one is big. Uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage kicks in when you are injured by someone whose policy is not large enough to fully compensate you, or maybe they don't have any insurance coverage at all, which is a lot more common than people think. So I think all the radio jingles and billboards kind of glamorize the personal injury process and make people think that if they're hit, they're going to get paid. But there are situations where you can be hit by someone that has no insurance at all. And in that situation, if you have that uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, you can be compensated under your own policy. It's also important to know that there are two different types of coverage. There's add-on and reduced by, and it's really important for people to know how those work. If you have add-on coverage, that means that if you recover all the possible coverage under the at-fault carrier's policy, let's say they have $25,000, you can avail yourself up to the full amount of your add-on coverage. That doesn't mean that your case is going to be worth that full amount, but up to that full amount that you have on your own policy. Whereas the reduced by policy is going to be offset by the available liability coverage. So using some of those same numbers, let's say that you're compensated from the at-fault carrier and you're paid $25,000 for them, and you personally carry $25,000 in reduced by coverage. This is a situation that can be really bad for some people because they think, hey, I have I should have extra coverage that I can avail myself to. But if you have 25 in reduced by coverage in that scenario, it's going to be offset by the 25,000 that you've already recovered, meaning that you actually have $0 in additional coverage that you can avail yourself to. So simply changing it from a reduced by policy to an add-on policy would allow you that additional $25,000 that you could potentially recover.
So when somebody's looking for new insurance or trying to upgrade their insurance, so when they call an insurance company, they should ask specifically for the add-on option?
Yes, for sure. And if you don't, you're most likely going to get the reduced by option. Some insurance companies even consider it traditional UM. So traditional reduced by is the same thing. You want to specifically ask for add-on UM coverage.
Okay, good to know. What are the benefits of comprehensive auto insurance, and why would you recommend it for vehicle owners in the state of Georgia?
So comprehensive coverage covers your damage to your vehicle in situations where the vehicle is damaged outside of a car accident. So maybe a tree falls on your car. Comprehensive usually kicks in if you hit an animal or there's some kind of weather storm or something like that that damages your vehicle, maybe vandalism. In all those situations, you can use your comprehensive coverage to either repair your vehicle or cover the loss of your vehicle.
Okay. What is the importance of rental reimbursement insurance in Georgia? Why is it recommended, but then again, not required?
So this one's good to have if you are in a car wreck, specifically with someone who doesn't have car insurance, it'll be big for you. If you have collision coverage after a car wreck and you are going through your own insurance to get your car fixed, you can use your rental reimbursement as well to cover rental expenses while your vehicle is being repaired. So essentially, anytime your car is needing to be repaired, and it's a covered loss, that rental reimbursement will kick in to cover those rental expenses for you.
Let's talk about the benefits of collision coverage. Why would you recommend it for individuals in Georgia?
Yeah, I mentioned this one in my last answer, but we hadn't talked about it yet. So this is good that you're asking me about collision coverage. Collision coverage is also extremely helpful to have. Regardless of if you cause a wreck or someone else causes a wreck, collision coverage will help to cover the repairs to your vehicle. So in Georgia, I always tell people the police report takes a long time to be ready after a car wreck. It can take a week, it can take 2 weeks. If there's a fatality, a lot of times it'll take even longer than that. Let's say that you don't exchange insurance information with the other party at the scene of the wreck. So now you're waiting that week, 2 weeks, maybe more for the police report to become available just so that you can see who the other insurance company is. And then once you get that information, you'll need to set up a claim. And even though you're 2 weeks out from the wreck, that at-fault driver, they may not have been eager to go set up a claim on their insurance policy. So it may be the first that the insurance company, the at-fault insurance company, is finding out about the wreck. And then from there, they're going to check off all their boxes and complete an investigation before they say, okay, we're going to start making repairs to your vehicle. And if you think about it, it makes sense. It is a source of frustration for a lot of people, the process that insurance companies go through before they accept responsibility for a loss. But they do have to make sure that it's a loss that they're required to pay for. Now, again, this can take weeks. It can take a very long time. If you are waiting all this time for the at-fault carrier to complete that investigation and your car is not drivable or it's damaged, then you're just going to be in that situation with the damaged vehicle or the car that's not drivable. Whereas if you have collision coverage, you can use your collision coverage to go ahead and start those repairs on your vehicle while this liability investigation is taking place. We recommend that honestly for most of our clients at my firm. And sometimes we get some pushback on it. People don't understand why they would use their own insurance coverage when someone else hit them. And the short answer is just that it's a quicker process for you. It helps you to get that vehicle fixed faster. And then if and when the at-fault carrier does accept liability, your insurance company is going to go back and subrogate. So they're going to recoup that money from the at-fault carrier once they do realize that it's a loss they should be covering for. So yeah, just in easing the process and making it faster, collision coverage is definitely a game changer. And it's something that everyone should have.
How valuable is the disability insurance? Why is it highly recommended for Georgia residents, even though it's not required?
So disability insurance is helpful if you are disabled and you're unable to work. It doesn't have to be a work injury that causes you to be disabled, but if you are unable to work because of an injury that you've sustained, or maybe even a chronic illness. I know a lot of disability policies will cover cancer and things like that, but if you're unable to work, the disability insurance can come in and cover a portion of your income, which is big for people with families, small children, and things like that. So when it comes to disability coverage, I think it's important for people to think about, if I were to be injured unexpectedly today, where would that leave my family? Would they be okay? Would they have the financial means to continue life in the same or similar way that they are used to? And if the answer to that is no, then you should probably have disability insurance.
And lastly, Trisha, can you talk about the benefits of gap insurance? Why is it highly recommended for Georgia drivers despite not being mandatory?
So gap insurance specifically helps if you're financing a vehicle. When you drive that car off the lot, everyone knows that the value depreciates. So you might owe $20,000 on the car, but it's only worth $15,000. And then let's say you're in a situation where someone hits you and your vehicle is totaled. That at-fault carrier is not required to pay off your car note. They're required to pay the value of your car. So in that scenario, that would be the $15,000, leaving you with another $5,000 that you still owe to your lien holder. If you have gap insurance, it can come in and cover the remaining $5,000 so that although you'll still be starting from scratch and having to get a new vehicle, at least you won't be paying on a vehicle that you can no longer use.
And if someone is in need for a personal injury attorney, how can they locate Starks-Byron Law Office? Do you have a website, social media platforms, email, phone numbers you want to share with everybody?
Sure. They can reach us online at starksbyron.com. Our number is 404-795-5115. And we do have people answering the phone 24 hours a day. If you're in need of our services after a car wreck. We do have Instagram and Facebook as well. Our Facebook is Starks Byron PC. Our Instagram is Starks Byron Law. And I think that covers everything.
I believe so. That's so great. Again, Trisha, thank you so much for being my very special guest on the It's Time for More Injury Finding podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for talking with me about the unrequired must-haves and about the Byron Starks must-haves, 10 of them actually. But before I let you go, I have one last question for you. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. How did you meet your spouse or significant other?
Oh, my husband and I met in college. Actually, we both went to Georgia Southern University. He was there before I was, because he's about 3 years older than me. So he had just transferred there from another school. And then I met him my freshman year. I was actually in the cafeteria with a mutual friend of ours, and I didn't notice him that day, but apparently he noticed me and asked my friend about me. And it was kind of an ongoing joke for a while. All my mutual friends were like, Stan wants to meet you. Stan wants to meet you. And then we finally met and we were pretty much together ever since.
Oh, I love it. That's
literally stuck at the hip.
Who is this most gorgeous and so smart looking girl? And he got the right girl. Here we go. Again, that was an attorney, Trisha Byron Starks. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for watching and listening to our story about unrequired must-haves in the state of Georgia today. For more tips and tricks on legal funding and personal injury related topics, follow me, like, and subscribe at More Injury Funding. And it's time for More Injury Funding podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms worldwide. Also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, Google business profile, and my website at moreinjuryfunding.com. That's with 2 O's. I can't wait to see you and listen to you all, my dear viewers and listeners, at my next coming episode. Tune in soon for our next guest. Until then, be well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.